This issue of revolution or coup, military coup, has been discussed and argued by specialists in political science and others, both inside Egypt and out. It is symbolized by that song, but I'm not going to say all that song, but the title of it, ثورتي والانقلاب, a revolution, this or coup d'etat. And you hear this song, there are lots of messages that come through it. I think any sensible person can never really claim that this is revolution or continuation to achieve the real aims and objectives of the 25th of January's revolution. Number one, because when we talk about being revolution takes place by masses of people until such time that the person in power under public pressure abdicates or leaves. And that was not the case at all, because there was a legitimate president, whether we agree with him in some decision, like him or not, but legally speaking, there was a president already elected by the public. You don't make revolution, that's counter-revolution, really, in reality, not revolution. You have a constitution already, and if someone comes and gives himself the power to be above the whole population who voted for that constitution and say, no, stop working, by what authority would any minister, defense or otherwise, make this? So there's no question for anyone with any reasonable sense, rather than just argumentation that doesn't have any firm foundation. It is a military coup, a bloody military coup, that even the representatives, the senators from the United States, you remember this famous story when they were asking them, he said, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it is a duck. It's a sort of subtle way of saying that no sensible, respectable person would say that this is revolution. It was counter-revolution, and in fact what transpired later on, that it is exactly going back to destroy all the achievements of the revolution, which was basically freedom of expression, freedom of press, freedom of arbitrary arrest. So the issue to me is so clear, it doesn't really require too much argumentation.
So with that, even if Dr. Morsi was a democratically elected president by the people, is it not the right of the people to withdraw their votes if they are not satisfied with the performance of a president or a government? Do you believe that people are the final authority in democracy?
That statement is what some people call كلمة حق يراد بها باطل. It's a word of truth, but actually intended to promote falsehood. Or some people call it a half-truth, and a half-truth could be untruth, in fact. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, woe to those who pray and don't complete the ayah. So half-truth could be exactly the opposite of what truth is. What is the basis for that? What is the half-truth? The half-truth that, yes, indeed, people are the source of all authority, the final authority. There's no question. Above the president, above the elected parliament, because they are elected, after all, by the people, and people can remove them or fail to renew their mandate. Do people who give that authorization through election have the right to withdraw? You hear about people who are so-called intellectuals appearing on even Al Jazeera so many times, saying that the people gave that authorization, and since they are the final authority, yes, they have the right to withdraw that. Yes, the people have the right to withdraw the confidence in the president or government. But the other half of the truth that is not mentioned is how. They do that through the established procedure in the Constitution, in the present Constitution, not by making claims of numbers and photographs, whether photoshopped or not, falsified or not, counter claims of millions and 30 million and figures, the astronomical figure. Aside from the figure, this is not the issue. Sometimes you keep track. get trapped into, were there 30 million? Impossible. Now, no, we also have 25 million. We have this signal. This is not the democratic way of withdrawal of confidence. You've got already a legitimate constitution, a legitimate president in power, legitimate procedures in case you want to change your mind, either after the mandate of the 4 years or even withdraw it in the middle through a procedure that even known in the United States, for example, like impeachment. You know, it was about to happen to former President Nixon, but he just resigned to maintain some dignity. So this is the way to go it. Wait until the end of the mandate and don't elect. If you think this is so disastrous that you can't wait, all right, you go through the proper process of impeachment before the elected body. So to say that this is simply a natural thing is not. It's not by claims. And nobody has the right to claim that they're speaking on behalf of Sha'b, the people. A Sha'b can speak for itself. And the only fair and objective ways that the people can speak up in opposition or support is through the ballot box, not the bullet box, the tanks, the armored vehicles, the guns, the prohibited forms of bullets that get inside the brains and explode, not by the use of all these illegal and immoral means of killing innocent people, as in the grave massacre, not only in Rab'a, which was the worst, but also in Nahda and other places throughout, and continues almost on a daily basis until today, attacking people who are demonstrating and demanding their right. Furthermore, if you say, but the president is accused of criminal punishment or criminal acts that are impeachable, you don't decide that yourself. Even before you make the accusation, you've got to have, when you go to the Attorney General or to issue an arrest, if that is permissible action in the Constitution with respect to the President, you must have enough indictable evidence, not any claim, because otherwise anyone who wants to stop the process of democracy can say, I accuse the President of killing so many people. Where is your evidence? No. You have to try him. In which law in any country that respects its legal system could that ever happen? You must have some documents, some evidence that is convincing enough to the judge that he can issue an order of arrest and then open up investigation. But people are arrested and then later on they make investigation and start shaping and formulating the kind of accusation they want to levy against them. But again, something which is very important to remember, that for presidents in the Constitution, any constitution in the world, because of the seriousness, because anyone just can accuse the president, he goes to jail. Who's running the state? This is chaos. In the case of presidents, and this is a recognized principle, there are special procedure if indeed he's accused, not of mismanagement, that you don't execute people because of mismanagement. No, the procedure requires that something can be presented before the elected body, like the parliament, equivalent to the parliament, and then if indeed they find enough evidence, the investigation goes in the parliament itself about following the proper procedures as to how to impeach the president or pressuring him to resign. So even this claim, like the majority of people are with them, with the coup. Well, if indeed this is true, and if indeed the opponents of the military coup are minor, they keep marginalizing a few Sawaz, people who are outside. Okay, the election of the last institution, democratic institution, Majlis al-Sha'b, that's the lower house, which was improperly actually dissolved by the Constitutional Court, by the way, because the Constitutional Court cannot overrule the vote of the people. This is how the law sometimes is interpreted by some segments in the judiciary, and the role, as I mentioned, of the Constitutional Court, which was designed specially to have absolute powers, and sometimes took decisions that they were not actually qualified and supposed to take it. No constitutional court can overrule the vote of the public, because if you give that right, then if 90% of the people vote for the Constitution, they say, no, your vote is not constitutional. So that's chaos. That is tyranny, actually. But unfortunately, that's what happened. So nothing of this happened, and anyone who had any ground for accusation, it has to go through proper procedures of law.
Okay. So what about those who claim that the 2012 Constitution was not satisfactory to all Egyptians and was put together and designed to suit the ruling party? What's your answer on that question?
What they call to say Dastur Maslu', something, a constitution that just hurriedly made. This is unfair, whether we agree with certain clauses in the Constitution or not. This is not an honest description of what happened. It wasn't. There were a couple of months, several weeks, there were discussion. Discussion by whom? Not by appointed people, but by people who were elected by the public. And that is in Majlis al-Shura, the upper house. So number one. Number two, but some say, the other thing that is lacking totally in the so-called new constitution is that it was public, it was open discussions on the air as it happened. Some of you have seen that. I spent the entire night in the final meeting, or session where they finalized the constitution item by item. The requirement is that the meeting should be continuous, so they thought that they had a marathon meeting to finish things quickly. How about the work was done weeks and weeks before the public? Presentations were made by people throughout the country, giving their opinion and input. And all of that, is that just like boiling an egg? This is not a very ethical way of describing what happened. Secondly, to say that the Constitution was made only to benefit one particular group, that is the Freedom and Justice Party or the other, is very strange kind of thing. When all these discussions went on and public criticized, and I've seen myself in the constitutional discussion in the Shura, that many people spoke very, their mind very effectively, very strongly, and they were very assertive of what they wanted. And to say that designed for one group, as if 100% of the Shura or the Constitutional Committee actually was only from one political group or the other. This is also something which, and to say that it is not satisfactory. Well, first of all, there have been lots of legal experts who saw in that Constitution of 2012 a huge progress in the protection of liberties, in the question of rights of women, in the question of protection of the right of the minority, when it specified that the Copts have the right, even though it was done, but specifying it in the Constitution, so nobody can violate it. They have every right to refer to their own religious courts in personal matters like marriage, divorce, custody, split of property after. These are very sensitive issues that shows respect of their rights, something that has been a tradition theoretically and practically throughout the history of Islam, and Egypt in particular, when they have special Christian courts. That is more than what minorities are giving in the most advanced countries. Here in Canada, for example, I happen to be a marriage officer. I can officiate marriages. Anyone? Any customer? Anyway, okay. But neither a Muslim imam or scholar or rabbi, Jewish rabbi or Christian clergy has the right to give legal divorce. They can give perhaps a religious divorce. They said that divorce meet the religious requirement. But everybody has to go to if we are living under truly Islamic system, as it was done actually in the past, then Jews can go to their own synagogues and get official legal divorce, so do Muslims, so do Christians. So that's more, that was even more privilege that is unheard of in treating minorities who are normally persecuted and not giving their due right. And then finally the issue that this was not satisfactory to the Egyptian people. Well, tell me of any constitution, anywhere, unless you talk about Mickey Mouse things in dictatorship, any constitution in any democratic country, civilized country, where you get 100% agreement with all clauses in the constitution. Tell me where. Tell me how many countries in the world that their constitution referendum won by nearly 2/3, 64% plus. Do you know that in many constitutions, in Europe even, a little over 50% even was regarded, okay, 2% more or something. You talk about 64%. I'm not sure, I'm not a legal expert. It is rather unique. I'm not aware of any other constitution in Europe even that was passed with this high percentage. But at least definitely it is far above the average in many European countries. Nobody would be satisfied with anything. Even prophets were not accepted 100%. I mean, it's childish really to say, but not everybody agrees. Yes, but what is democracy? Democracy is to take the majority rule, provided, of course, you don't oppress the minority, because that also is enshrined already in the Constitution. So it is actually not the tyranny of the majority. What happened was a tyranny of the minority. Those who lost or negatively voted on the constitutional referendum, they are the minority. They are 30-some%, right? So they put themselves as guardian over the ignorant Egyptian populace, uneducated, ummi, illiterate, and they say, no, our opinion should supersede. So you want democracy that is tailored for the minority, who in their arrogance think that people don't understand, only them have that intelligence. And believe me, I have seen people, farmers, people illiterate, who actually had much more mature and more balanced way in some of their political opinion than people who are specialists and professors of this and professors of that, with this experience or that. But in any case, nobody has the right to appoint himself guardian over what people did right or wrong.
All right.
I'm saying, but I'm not saying, by the way, the Constitution is absolutely perfect. Perfection is for Allah alone. But imperfections is a common denominator in all constitutions in the world. In the United States, you hear about First Amendment, Second Amendment. That means humans fell short of that, and from experience, they develop better amendment for these constitutions. So this is quite normal. Of course, it doesn't happen every year, otherwise it becomes chaotic. And there is a difference between modifying or changing a given law, let alone regulation, and between changing constitution. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So yes, it was not that perfect. It was far, far more guarantees of freedom and respect of human dignity than any constitution before it.
Well, thank you for answering that, Dr. Badawi. That's very well put. Now, how about the claim that the army was obligated to intervene to fight terrorism, which later identified the terrorists as the Muslim Brotherhood? Was that considered a part of the army duty to protect national security and to prevent civil war?
Can anyone here tell me of a consensus through United Nations, not Security Council, the few privileged ones, through the General Assembly of the United States of definition of what terrorism is? Tell me if I didn't keep up. No. No, there has been no agreement. And you know why there is no agreement? Because if you really want to have a comprehensive and fair, unbiased definition of terrorism, then some states even would fall under that category. So let me share with you my humble definition of that. I mentioned in my booklet. By the way, it's available. It's called Muslim and Non-Muslim Relations. You'll find it on the Fiqh Council of North America website. It's available also in hard copy, but I haven't brought too many copies here. And basically, what I suggested, and the first suggestion was made in interfaith dialogue that was sponsored by Rockefeller Foundation in New York. And there were present many representatives of various Christian churches in America. There were also Jewish representatives as well. And the discussion went on. I said to them basically this: I tell you my humble definition that I used in my paper of terrorism, and please correct me if you think that this is a partisan definition or favoring one group or the other. I said, terrorism is the deliberate victimization of the innocent, whether the culprit or victim is an individual, an organization, or a state. And I don't